Universities. We're joined by Senior Researcher at Crime and Justice Program at the Institute for Security Studies, Dr. Johan Burge, live from our Pretoria studio. Doctor, thank you for joining us. So we saw stones being thrown earlier, then it got worse, a bus on fire in Braamfontein. Tonight, horrific scenes of looting on the streets of Braamfontein. Several arrests, a priest was hurt. What's going on? What's your assessment, and could this get worse?
Yeah, this is extremely worrying, I think. You know, we have to ask the question, what is it that we expect our police to do? Of course, we expect them to act with maximum restraint. We also expect them to protect persons and property, as is provided for by our Constitution and various other laws of this country. So when you see scenes where students are physically attacking the police, or hiding behind their shields, throwing stones at them, and you see incidents where a bus was set alight, and of course we saw incidents such as this over the last couple of weeks, then clearly this is not a simple case of students protesting for a legitimate cause. This is also, in many instances, students who are using methods of violence that includes the property of the universities, but also public property out in the streets, and then also attacking our police. So again, you know, you have to ask the question, what do we expect our police to do? So it is an impossible position that the police find themselves in, and that is not condoning incidents where they do use excessive force. Of course, we need to criticize those incidents, and they have to be held accountable. But we also need to recognize the fact that there are a lot of violence out there on the streets, very often where the students themselves are the perpetrators.
How would you assess the police thus far? This has been going on for a while. As you said, especially with students, you want maximum restraint, and there were so many concerns about police training, about crowd control after Marikana. How would you assess the performance thus far in this very difficult situation that you've laid out?
Well, I think, you know, looking at the police generally, I think they acted in an acceptable way. Of course, we know there are incidents. We saw, for example, at Rhodes, where the way in which that one student was arrested is something that could have been avoided. It could have been done differently. There are also other incidents where the police could have perhaps exercised more restraint and not act against students who were, in a way, peacefully gathered, although that was against a court order on that occasion. But I think there you have to use your good sense. So there certainly are incidents where the police are open to criticism, but I think by and large the police acted with the kind of restraint that we are all calling for. We must also understand that, you know, Marikana was in many ways completely different. At Marikana, it was not so much the public order police units that were involved in the killing of those striking minors. It was the tactical units of the police who were armed with live ammunition. The public order police units are not armed with live ammunition, so completely different situation that we see on our campuses.
Some would argue that the police maybe should be stronger. Wits started lectures today, and students did go from lecture hall to lecture hall, some carrying sticks, we know, telling other students to leave. And they are saying, well, they have a right to learn. How do you find that balance? It is so difficult.
No, you're absolutely right. I think the challenge for the police is to act in a way that is unbiased, but at the same time exercising their constitutional obligations. They have to protect those students who are not involved in these actions, who wish to continue with their classes. But at the same time also they have to act against those students or other persons who perhaps may not be students, who are instigating violence and who are perpetrating violence, and this includes the destruction of valuable property. And perhaps I think this is an example of where the crime intelligence should assist the police more generally in terms of public order policing and so on, in identifying those who actually plan for violence. We've seen this with the petrol bombs. Clearly, the manufacture and the use of petrol bombs shows a large measure of preparedness. It shows planning. And the police will have to be more proactive in that sense, and then identify those perpetrators and arrest them. That's the only way I think they will be able to diffuse this situation.
Doctor, is there a link? Today at Wits University there was a strong police presence, I think stronger than we've seen in the past, and more violence than we've seen in the past. Does the presence of Nyalas perhaps provoke more violence from the students themselves?
Well, you know, I find it difficult to accept the argument that the presence of the police in itself can provoke or should provoke this kind of violent reaction from students. The fact is, the university took a decision to reopen today to allow those students who wish to continue with their classes, and of course the staff involved, to do precisely that. But you also need to ensure that they would be safe while doing so, while exercising their own rights in terms of our constitution. So in order to do that, you have to maintain a suitable presence by the police at the relevant campuses to ensure that those students and staff who wish to exercise those rights would be protected. And so then I fail to see how this can incite other students to become involved in actions of attacking the police and destroying property. I think, you know, this just shows that this is a way of using intimidation tactics in the hope that this was cause the university to stop these classes again.
We're in a certain context, no economic growth, huge unemployment. Many of these students don't have prospects of getting a job if they don't do very well in their studies. To what extent is what's happening on campuses reflecting the bigger issues in our country, including dissatisfaction with political leadership?
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, I think the problem that we have in this country is that there are huge social and economic issues. We've seen this with the ongoing protests by communities who complain about a lack of services. We see this by unions who continue with strike action. We've seen the ratings, economic ratings, pulling South Africa down. All of these issues are interlinked. So again, you know, using the police to try and solve these problems is exposing them to situations where they are bound to become involved in a confrontational relationship with not only students but communities more broadly. And this creates an impossible situation for the police. So it is important that our government and the various authorities that we have on campuses at local government level, that they start to understand that you cannot solve these problems, these existing and even worsening social problems by a continued deployment of the police. The police can at best buy some time, but we need to have political and other solutions to these ongoing social and economic problems that we experience.
All right, thank you very much. That was Dr. Johan Burge from the Institute of Security Studies coming to us live from Pretoria.